This is the Creating Wealth Through Self-Storage show by Mark Helm. Nothing Mark shares with you guarantees your success in the self-storage business. This is for informational purposes only. There are no calls to action, and nothing said or implied is a call for investment money into self-storage or any other asset class. You are responsible for your success in the self-storage business or any endeavor in life. Enjoy the show, and here is Mark Helm.
A big shout out to U-Haul. Thank you, Joe. Let's talk about the president and CEO of U-Haul and what they have most recently done. My name's Mark Helm. I'm the author of Creating Wealth Through Self-Storage, and I'm the creator of the Quickstart Academy, which houses the training that I offer the small investor. If you want to get in the self-storage business or you want to grow your self-storage business, there's a lot of free training and courses, paid courses, that can support you on your storage journey. Creating Wealth Through Self-Storage, just hit the store tab. But a big shout out to U-Haul. Finally, one of the big guys, one of the bigger companies, has stood up against the deplorable bait and switch practices that many of the large REITs are using, with the worst being Extra Space. I'm talking about the bait and switch practices of luring customers in with extremely low rates and then raising their rates exponentially, knowing that it's extremely difficult for many of these people to move to another facility that offers more fair revenue pricing strategies. U-Haul is the first large national company, publicly traded company, to stand up and say enough is enough. The president and CEO, Shoen, about how they, U-Haul, will lock a rate in for a year. I don't know if I want to lock a rate in for a year, but I think it's phenomenal that a publicly traded company has taken a public stand against the abusive practices of the highly aggressive dynamic pricing strategy models. Besides the fact that it invites regulation, which we're starting to see, it's not a good way to treat your customer base. Without customers, you don't have a business. And to treat customers the way that I've been treated by Extra Space is deplorable. Now look, I'm all about price increases. I'm all about having my revenue go up over my operating expenses, hopefully year after year. But at least over a time period, I want my revenue to be rising higher than my operating expenses. But that's not what really is going on with some of these revenue pricing models. And I can speak from experience. 3 years, we sold all of our properties, storage properties, in one of our markets, my hometown market. And I ended up initially, because I needed it, but I keep it just to see what's happening, I rented a space from Extra Space about 3 years ago. And yeah, they were slightly more than what I charged at our facilities when I sold them. And within 3 months, I started getting price increases. And I decided to stay there and just see how far it would go. Now, my calculator informs me that over a 3-year period, I have averaged a 24.1% increase per year in my rent at that facility. And they will keep raising it until I cry uncle and finally move out. Now, 24.1% is like over the top, but it's nowhere near what some other people I know at that same facility. I've seen one person get an 85% increase, and I know and heard of people who've had over 100% increase in a 12-month period. If there was ever a class action lawsuit in the state of Kentucky, you bet your tail I would be in on that. Now, it has started in California, as many of you know, and there's regulations in place, not quite as strong as what the legislature and the governor wanted, but pretty strong regulations in place where the REITs and all storage people now, because of the REIT practices, have to disclose what their average in-store rate is on each unit size that someone rents. And New York, on February 10th, 2026, filed a suit against who else? Extra Space. Now, I'm going to read this just because I can and I enjoy it. Commissioner Levine seeks to recover full restitution for consumers and more than $5 million in penalties from self-storage companies. This was the headline on February 10th. New York, New York. Today, New York City Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, DCWP, announced the filing of a landmark lawsuit against Extra Space, a nationally publicly traded storage company that operates approximately 60 locations across New York City. After reviewing more than 100 complaints, DCWP's investigation found that Extra Space consistently failed to provide the quality of service it advertises and uses predatory practices to exploit consumers and violate New York City's consumer protection laws. To address the company's illegal bait-and-switch schemes, DCWP is seeking to hold the company accountable for misconduct in New York by pursuing restitution for aggressive consumer and civil penalties for thousands of violations of city law. This is the first lawsuit DCWP is bringing against a self-storage company. This lawsuit aims to shut down Extra Space's deceptive bait-and-switch schemes, recover full restitution for consumers, and send a clear message to the self-storage industry that exploiting New York comes with serious consequences, said DCWP's Commissioner Sam Levine. This fee-free February and every month false advertising, hidden late fees, and other predatory practices are on our radar. The era of exploiting New Yorkers is over. For too long, self-storage companies like Extra Space have used deceptive tactics to lure New Yorkers in with low introductory rates only to jack up their prices and hit them with hidden fees. This kind of behavior drains consumer wallets, undermines affordability in our city, said Deputy Mayor for Economic Justice Julie Su. The administration is committed to rooting out corporate greed wherever it appears, and I commend Commissioner Levine and DCWP for taking bold action by filing this lawsuit. It's time for storage companies like Extra Space to face accountability for exploiting hard-working New Yorkers, said New York City Council Speaker Julie Menon. Many New Yorkers rely on self-storage as a necessary solution to limited space and sudden changes in their living situations. They deserve storage facilities whose services are transparent, reliable, and fully compliant with our city's laws. I thank Commissioner Levine for his leadership in pursuing real accountability and protecting New Yorkers from future exploitation. Extra Space is subject to over 100 complaints by New Yorkers fed up with their bait-and-switch practices, unsanitary conditions, and threat to auction off consumer belongings if they refuse to pay junk fees and other bogus charges, said New York City Council member Harvey Epstein. The DCWP's lawsuit sends a clear message: deception and exploitation will not be tolerated. As chair of the Consumer Protection and Workers Protection Committee, I'm proud to support DCWP in their fight to ensure honest pricing and commit to quality and service for all New Yorkers. The sad part is there was absolutely no reason to have this lawsuit filed. If you treat customers the way that you would want to be treated, this type of thing would never have happened. Now, I've been publicly ranting about this practice for years, and even though I'm a legend in my own mind, most people could care less what I think. But the president and CEO of one of the larger self-storage companies speaking out publicly against this gives me hope for our industry, and I'm beginning to see light at the end of the tunnel. Now, I'm all about price increases. I really am. But the practices we've seen Extra Space and companies like that do are capitalism at its worst. It invites regulation, it invites lawsuits. Now you may say, yes, but that's New York, it's a very liberal government, very liberal state. This is true. But it's a non-thinking way that does not address the underlying fundamental problem, which is deceptive pricing and revenue strategies that trick consumers and doesn't treat consumers the way they want to be treated. Obviously, these lawsuits are going to start in California and New York. But if you remember 10 years ago, the same thing happened with late fees and started on the coast, but came in, and pretty soon the red states were regulating what a late fee was in our industry, how much one could charge, and when it could be charged, state by state. The only reason for that regulation was because of the abusive practices of self-storage owners. Now, do you want to see your rent increases regulated? Do you want to see what you can charge for a 10 by 10 defined by state law? Well, unless we stop these abusive practices, that's exactly what's going to happen. And I hope Extra Space and all the practitioners of this abusive bait and switch are nailed. Let me ask you a few questions. What's your impression, or how would you rate politicians? How would you rate used car salesmen? How would you rate pharmaceutical companies? What's your thoughts on oil and gas companies? Well, those are some of the lowest rated industries by the public in our country. How would you like to see self-storage on that list? So far, we've slid under the radar of most people in the U.S., but it isn't going to stay there long unless we stop these practices. And a big shout out to U-Haul for taking the public stand against it. I have renewed hope for our industry. I see the light at the end of the tunnel now. My call to you is within your state and national SSA organizations. Stand out, speak out against these practices, educate your consumer about the practices that Extra Space and a lot of these other companies are deploying right now. Educate your consumer about it, and then educate them about how your company, your storage facility is different. And you don't treat your customers that way. Stand out and stand up. Become a valued part of your local community. Nothing's more local than storage, as you know. Become a valued part of your local community. Set yourself apart from these larger companies with their deceptive practices, and treat customers the way that you would want to be treated. It's that simple. I have renewed hope for our industry today. And those are just my thoughts today, first quarter of 2026. And I look forward to being with you next week as we explore ways to reduce your insurance increases that are coming. My name's Mark Helm. I'm the author of Creating Wealth Through Self-Storage. And I look forward to being with you next week.